Yeah, g'day guys, this is Steve, and this is going to be my little tutorial video on how to assemble a model ready for painting. So first thing is you're going to need some tools. The basics are going to be some sort of surface to work on or cut things. Obviously you don't want to be going and ruining your wife or your parents' kitchen tables. Second thing you will need is a good hobby knife. You can usually pick these up. I got this one at the reject shop for about $2 or $3, I think. Obviously the sharper the better. It's easier to cut yourself with a blunt knife than it is a sharp knife. The next thing you will need is some kind of side cutters or clippers. It's always better to cut things off of sprues than it is to pull them off, because that way you can get them off without damaging your models. And then of course, depending on your model, you'll need some glue. This is a really good model glue that I was given for my birthday, but sometimes if I'm doing plastic models I'll just use super glue. That seems to do the job just fine. Some optional things, they're not a necessity. A vice drill, handy for if you are doing metal models with big parts that you want to pin together so they don't fall apart. Also some green stuff. It's a two-part, like a modeling compound. You sort of cut a bit off, mix it all together, and then when you put it in the gaps of your models it sets hard and makes them look a bit nicer. I've got this thing here. I picked this up online. This is a Citadel mold line remover. You don't really need one of these if you've got a hobby knife, but I like to use this. It's nice and flat, it's not sharp, and helps me when I'm removing mold lines that I don't cut myself. And then last of all, once again, this isn't really necessary, but I have my little grinding tool here. I'll just turn him on. And I use this on my metal figures. I've got a little like fine pointed sanding point on there, and that helps me to also clean up my metal figures before I put them together and make them look nice and swish. So today for you I'm going to be putting together Archdemeanor Makeda, who is a warlock for hordes in the Scorn army, which, as a lot of you know, I collect. Gonna be honest, I've already opened this up and sort of started cleaning her up a little bit, but what I like to do is, first thing of all, you get them out of the package. So make sure you get your little base. Sometimes they forget to put those in there, and then you just want to check your components. So there's the main part of the model, there's her little back banner, there's her little sword scabbards that hang off her hips, there's her big braid that comes out of the top of her head, and finally her other sword arm. So, like I said, I've already started working on this a little bit. I tried to do something a little bit earlier, but it didn't work out, so now I'm trying this method. So what I like to do is, I like to go over my models first, and I like to make sure that they don't have any, excess flashing or mold lines sticking out. So, I don't know if it's easy to see on the camera there. I am recording this with my phone. Alright, so we have a few little mold lines on there. It's probably not very easy to see, but just along here there's a small line, and basically what a mold line is, it's from when they make the models. They have obviously a mold of the model, and they inject plastic or resin or the metal they use into the mold, and that is basically where the mold has joined together to make the miniature, and it leaves a small line. So basically take a little bit of a knife and just sort of using the flat of your knife, sort of slide it down there, and it makes it nice and smooth. Now, this is a really good method when you're using plastic or resin. Your knife or my little mold line remover tool, as I just mentioned before, works just fine for that, but I'm impatient, and that's why I have this tool here to do it for me. I find it makes it nice and smooth. It helps me get into the little niggly parts, so like if I have to get underneath her arm and that in here, so that's what it helps me do. So I'm going to stop the video now, and I'll be back after I have finished trimming her up. Okay, so I'm back. I was just about to start getting onto this with my little electronic grinding tool, and just on her swords here, I noticed where I had clipped off some of the flashing from where the mold was injected. I've actually got a little bit of excess metal here that it's going to take a long time to grind down, so just with my little hobby knife, just going to cut that off. And of course, when you're taking off big chunks of metal and stuff off your models, it's always best to use the clippers. But little bits like this, I just trim them up with my knife. Of course, always be careful when using knives. Don't want to go cutting yourself and getting blood all over your expensive models. Okay, so that seems to be cleaned up. There seems to be any sort of flashing on this one. What's that? No, that's part of the detail. Now the good thing about this, obviously, is not just getting your model ready to be painted, but it also gives you a good chance to look at all the detail on the model, so that, give you some ideas of what you're going to do to get them painted up. It's fine. And I seem to have covered all of the flashing on those parts. Sometimes I'm a little bit stickler for this, but sometimes there's that little tab there on your base. I like to get that off there because it looks crappy. Alright, I'll be back just after I've finished cleaning the rest of these mold lines. Okay, I'm back. So all the mold lines are now off my model, which is good. Actually, I think I just missed that little bit right there. Always missing bits. Okay, so now we're going to start putting it together. Now I didn't notice that the tab under her feet was too big to fit into the base, so I actually had to trim that down a little bit and also increase the size of the hole where it sits, and now it's a nice fit. So I have myself some Stick It C8 adhesive. I know some people like to also use Zap-A-Gap, I also know some people like to use this plain super glue, but I found that with the metal models, super glue is generally useless. Great for plastic, not so great for your metal. Sticker in there. So still not going all the way in, but we can fix that up a little bit later with the basing. So we'll just let that dry slightly. Alrighty, now before I glue things in, I also like to check that the parts are going to fit comfortably. So I'll get things like the arm here. Now, sometimes it does pay to look at a reference photo. Fortunately, I have one right here on the back of her packaging. That's her right there. So you can see her sword, both of her swords are pointing the same direction. Stick it on sort of like that, and that should be looking pretty cool. A little bit of glue, don't go too crazy with your glue. Sometimes less is more. This particular glue acts as a gap filler as well to a certain extent. Just hold them on there. So when you apply your glue, it has a tendency to obviously spread out when you press it into what you want it to stick to. So you don't have to go covering the whole area with a big blob of glue. It will spread out and stick on its own. Okay, so there's her other arm on. Let's give that a few moments to dry and then we'll stick the rest of the components on. Okay, so I ran out of space on my phone when I was doing my last little clip. So as you can see, the sword scabbards have already been glued on, which was what I was doing at the time. Now we're just going to finish up. I'm going to put this little braid on the top of her head. I reckon a little bit of a tight squeeze that one is. Gonna fit on, maybe not quite like that, because I reckon that back banner pole is going to fit there. So maybe off to the side like that for a braid, and then the back banner pole will fit on just there. Zoom in a little bit for you. Not quite enough, I don't think. There we go, that's better. Pop him on there. Nice. That's pretty tight on there. That shouldn't fall off. Sorry about that. And the pole should fit on like so. I'll hold him on for a bit. It's sort of tacked on just nicely. So there you have it, Arch Demeanor Makeda, all ready to have a base done and have a bit of a primer so we can start painting her. So that's the end of this video. I'm probably going to make a few more with some other little tips and tricks for painting and all that sort of stuff. So if you like, leave me some feedback, subscribe if you like, give me a like, all that sort of stuff. That'd be great. This is my first video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.